Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host, Vicky speaking, and today I am solo. For those of you who don't know me, welcome. I am everything to do with health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationships, all of the things that affect how we think, how we feel, and how we function. And today I just want to share a little story. I did post about this on Facebook, but I wanted to make an episode out of it because I think it's such an important topic. Well, that topic is fear. Fear tends to be the thing that holds us back in so many ways for so many different reasons. And I actually do train 5 times a week. I take a couple of days off because the timing just doesn't work and it doesn't fit for me to train on a Tuesday and a Thursday. So other than that, I do usually go to the gym or I train at home, and I kind of split my workouts between cardio and weights. And I try and get in 3 and 3. So 3 cardio sessions if I can and 3 weight sessions. Now, I know you've just said 5 and 3 and 3 adds up to 6. So I do one that's a split session. Otherwise, they are one's weights, one spin, one's weights, one spin, and then I do a split. So it was a cardio session. It was a spin bike session. And I used to teach spinning. Actually, I did teach as a freelance fitness instructor for a long, long time. I qualified in 1991 and I freelanced in gyms from then right up until 2021. Yes, 30 years. And for those of you who don't know why I decided to quit, it was simply this. You remember lockdown, and then we weren't locked down, and then we were again. We had that little kind of weird bit in between. And we were all invited to go back to the gyms that we'd freelanced in when we reopened and basically pick up as if nothing had happened, except we had so many rules in place. I don't know if you remember that. If you did go back into a working environment or the office, having had however months it was, I can't remember now, at home. And I remember distinctly my decision that I was not going to freelance anymore. And it was a Sunday morning and I was stood in the studio, and I usually did 3 back-to-back classes on a Sunday, which I loved, by the way. But I'd gotten used to being at home, my own sound system, my own booking system, people messaging me personally if they couldn't make it or changing their booking. My air conditioning always worked. My microphone always worked. And suddenly I was back in an environment where the booking system wasn't great. People didn't bother to cancel if they weren't going to come. The air conditioning was very hit and miss, and the microphone rarely worked. And so my class was meant to start at 9:30. Now, I was teaching it from my living room at home. I was online at 9:25 for people to jump on early, have a quick chat before we got going bang on 9:30. So it's 9:30 and there's not a soul in the studio for the step class. Not one person except me. And as I watched that clock tick around in the mirror, I was stood facing myself and I just said to myself out loud, "What are you doing? 30 years is enough." And in that moment, that is when I decided that was it. So when we had the second lockdown episode and the gym invited me back, it was a no from me. And there was a lot of upset from clients who couldn't imagine what it would be like on a Sunday morning without me because I'd been there for over 12 years. But here's the thing, we do adapt and we do change. But there was fear. Fear, would the classes still be busy? Sunday mornings was one of the biggest turnouts because my classes were busy. I was a seasoned instructor. I knew my craft very well. And I still teach, by the way. But I teach, I don't do. And I don't copy. It's not a Simon Says class. I actually make it innovative. And there's a reason why I put in whatever I put into a session. But the fear was unfounded because of course people adapt. And this is the thing. When I was sitting on the bike doing my training, my legs were literally burning. And that's where my mind can just go. It's kind of a bit like meditation for me. And the word fear just drops into my head. And I started playing around with it as an acronym. And I just said to myself, what if fear meant feeling excited and raring to go, because that is how I was on the bike. The sweat was pouring and my hands get really, really sweaty, and I could just feel my whole body was alive and I was glowing because I was getting hotter. And those were the words that came in: fear and excitement, or feeling excited and just raring to go, because that is how I felt. And this is the thing, because inside the body, the nervous system activation means that fear and excitement are very, very similar. The actual body sensations are pretty much identical. What is going on a cellular level, on a hormonal level, on a neurotransmitter level, is pretty much the same. So what makes fear different from excitement? It's very simple. It's the story or the meaning that we attach to it. That's what makes fear either scary or what allows us to turn fear into feeling excited and raring to go. And this is where we're going to remember that the body prepares us for action. So those sensations of your cortisol coming in, of the adrenaline coming in, your heart rate increasing, your breath perhaps getting a little bit more shallow. We're in that kind of fight and flight part of our nervous system, and we're preparing for action. Now, the body doesn't label it as dangerous or an opportunity. It's our brain that does that. In other words, it's us and our beliefs. Our nervous system says, activate, yay. And our identity can go, no, wait, I'm not ready. And this is where it's so, so important that we recognize that we can decide what our feelings are going to tell us. Because when I was feeling stressed, when I was in a place where my nervous system was literally activated nearly all of the time, I was back in 2018, and I think I've shared this story, where there was issues going on with the book publishers, where my first book wasn't going to be ready on time. The physical book wasn't going to be ready on time for an event that I was speaking at Excel, and I'd invested a lot. For anybody who's done an Excel or an Olympia event, these things are not cheap. You have to pay for the space. And then if you want anything on your stand of any description, whether it's a light or a plug socket or a chair, you have to pay extra. And every single item is extra. And then, of course, there's your speaking opportunity and all of that kind of stuff, which I think that's part of the package that I paid for. So different packages include speaking or not. In other words, none of it is free. So if you've ever been to any of these events, the people who are actually exhibiting and having a stand, right, it's a lot of investment. And I wanted my book to be ready, and it wasn't. In between me having kind of stressful email conversations with these people, my mum had passed away, and there was family issues going on with what was going to happen with the whole burial of my mum and all that kind of good stuff. And it was a really, really stressful time. I was still a single parent. I was still managing my business. And this is where, for people who know what it's like to run a business, we can put on this image, persona, mask, I don't really care what word you use, but we portray that everything is fine, and we say, yeah, it's all great and everything's fine and everything's in hand, or we just go, yeah, a bit challenging, but we don't really say more than that. But the truth is, we change our habits, and we don't necessarily know that is what we're doing at the time. But you may find that boundaries become a little bit more blurred, that patience, or certainly in my case, my patience with myself was definitely significantly lower. I know that I was going back into old patterns of missing meals, restricting eating, and using exercise as a tool to just try and help myself to push through, to manage my energy, and far too much caffeine and sugar. And there's no doubt about it. And this activation, this stress, this fear that I was feeling, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen, what was happening with this book, what would be the outcome of this family drama that was going on. And activation, which is what it is, those sensations of activation, were being misread as danger. And this is where actually I was trying to eliminate it by my habits and by behaviors, when actually what I needed to do was just really reinterpret what was going on and turn into it. Because actually this was an opportunity for me to get creative, to do something different. If my actual book wasn't going to be ready, what was I going to do instead? I needed to have a plan, and I needed to really allow this to be a way of me recognizing that this could be an opportunity to get people to sign up in advance to buy the book, and so that they were anticipating I could create even more of a buzz around it. This is the thing that you don't necessarily recognize at the time. Now, hindsight is a great thing, isn't it? But this panic, this feeling, this sensation of being overwhelmed, this is where, if I was able in and of that moment to stop and ask myself, what actually is going on? Is it fear or is it expansion? Am I looking and mislabeling it as some kind of rejection or woe is me, or why does all of this stuff happen to me? Am I losing control? Is that what I'm saying to myself? And I could turn it into a feeling of failure, of not being good enough, of not being prepared enough, of blaming myself. And falling into that blame game is something that so many business owners do, and especially midlife women. There's the guilt that comes along with you trying to focus on growing your business whilst still bringing up and caring for your family. And if you've got young teens or young adults, and you have got older parents who need your time and attention too, then there can be guilt on every level, everywhere you turn. You've got to show up for appointments with your parents when you're meant to be in a meeting with potentially an important client, or maybe your kid is off sick, or they need you to pick them up because, well, for whatever reason. My point is, there's a lot of feeling pulled in different directions. And then if you've also add into that the issue of how you are feeling within yourself, especially if you are of a certain age and you're going through sensations of symptoms of menopause. Now, I worded that carefully. I said sensations of symptoms of menopause. Those sensations of symptoms of menopause may not actually be menopause. What are you talking about? Well, often the things that I associated with menopause were not. That's when I discovered I had my autoimmune issues, because I was seeing my change in mood, my hot flashes, and real extreme changes in temperature, and my sensations of depression and not wanting to get out of bed as being linked to menopause. And guess what? My GP also decided to link it to menopause. It was not. It was actually two undiagnosed, undiscovered autoimmune issues, which, because I was so hacked off with the way that it was being looked at, or should I say not looked at, by the GP, I was offered, it could be a virus, or I was offered, maybe you're overworked, or I was offered, it sounds like it is potentially depression, and then I was offered, it's probably menopause. None of which were satisfactory, and none of which gave me any practical solutions. But when you add all this onto the fact that I was still back then wanting everything to be perfect, to be better than, to some degree, because I hadn't done the level of work on my own self and my own beliefs and my own worth. We're talking 2018. That's not that long ago, but it's long enough. I've definitely grown and changed a lot since then. But I didn't really recognize what was going on. And this is now why I do what I do, because I recognize that fear was stopping me from making decisions in a massive way. And that is a real big one. There was this big, massive need, and it was a need, and almost to the point of obsession, to make the right decision. And I was not in a place within my belief system back then, or my values, or my self-worth, where I recognized that there is no such thing as a bad decision. There are decisions that have an outcome, and then you will make another decision, and then there will be an outcome, and then you will make another decision. And that's how life works. And you cannot plan for everything, because stuff is going to happen that you don't expect. And I had a heart attack. I literally fainted, and it was a heart attack. Now, was I scared? Actually, no. I wasn't. I was very much coming from a place of, okay, if it is what I think it is, and I did think it was a heart attack, though it didn't feel like I expected a heart attack to feel, I can tell you that. I was literally coming from a place of not being scared. I was coming from a place of, how do I make sure that my daughter is okay and she isn't panicking too much? And this is what we tend to do when we recognize that fear can actually be a positive thing, because rather than me being terrified that I was going to die, it made me decide to really take my health into my hands and kind of stop playing at it. Because I knew everything. Heck, I've been in the world of health and wellness, I shared with you, since 1991 as a fitness instructor. And I specialized in fat loss and helping people to get the body shape and size that they wanted, and ditch the diets and ditch the emotional and binge eating. And I was doing that already. So I knew a lot, but I wasn't actually implementing and activating. Why? Fear. Fear that I wouldn't be able to do what I said I was going to do. Why? Because my belief system and my past history was just that. And this is a massive thing, because fear often is something that does allow us to expand and to grow. In fact, it's the only thing that allows us to expand and to grow, because that is when we take action. And that action will either give us the result that we hope for, or it won't. Now, you can class it as failure if you like. I like to class it as feedback, because the more you can take action and then get feedback, the more you can do one of the 7 crucial R's that are part of my method. And that is review, and then you can realign and refine. So when you take an action, even if you're scared, and see it as activation, if you get excited by it and are feeling in a place of, you know what, raring to go, let's make a decision quickly and let's just see what happens. Because here's one thing that I think all of us need to take on board. Your body is going to prepare you for expansion, but it's your mind that calls it a threat. And if you allow yourself to go down that road of expansion, you will get the feedback that will allow you then to refine and realign. And that is what you do. You review, and then you reactivate, and then you refine and you realign, and you keep on going. And this is how we can create the health that we want, how we can create the business that we want, how we can create the relationships and the finances that we want, because all of those things affect how we think, how we feel, and how we function. Now, I know that people who have beliefs, powerful beliefs and values around perfectionism, around being better than, around just wanting to do the best that they possibly can with the natural skills that they have, or the skills that they have spent hours and hours honing on. Because here's the thing, people may have a natural talent in one area, but the ones who really succeed, they do put the hours in of practicing and practicing, because that is how we master any skill. And fear is not something that we need to eliminate, but we definitely do need to reinterpret it and utilize it as a way of expanding and of growing. And if you are a high performance business owner, then high performance is definitely not the absence of fear. I can guarantee that you will have multiple decisions in your lifetime as being a business person and a high performance professional where you are going to be scared of making the decisions. But what's the difference between the high performance people who actually succeed and the ones who don't, or who succeed for a while but then just disappear? Simply this: it's the ability to feel that activation, to feel that fear, and to move anyway, to take action. Why? Because they've decided to rename it as excitement, and they decided to feel raring to go. So next time your heart starts racing about something important, don't ask, what if this goes wrong? Ask, what if this is me stepping up? Because you can. Question is, will you give yourself permission to? And I'm going to leave you with that question to ponder. It's a great question to journal on. Journaling is your thing. And if you like what you've heard here today, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple, then hit that follow button, because the more subscribers and followers that I have, the more I can keep this podcast going and help you to help yourself to think, feel, and function in a way that you want to, so that you can live a life that you truly enjoy. And I'm going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So please take care of it, because it is taking care of you. Until next time. Bye-bye.